2.4 billion, and it's a 4.13% increase. The makeup of that 4.13 was, I don't think we put it in the slide. Did we, Kristen? You want to go to the next one?
Sharon, what was the percent change from the July 1st number to the final when you had 1.7
It dropped a percent.
Whole percent?
1 whole percent.
So do you think we're in that same situation this year, or, I mean, when will we get the final number again?
Well, that's what this slide will show you. You'll get what they call a final number in October. Well, a preliminary final number in October. Then you'll get another number in November. And this year, the number was not, we got one in November, but we got a final one in May. So we started out the year with $2,309,000 and ended up in October thinking we had gone up to $2,312,000, and in final analysis, we dropped back down to $2,308,000. So.
Tom?
It's notable that all of those final numbers wound up in a negative side of the column.
I don't think many people challenge their number and ask for it to be increased. I get that feeling that most people ask for a decrease.
I don't know why.
But it's still 0.04%.
That's the first time it's been so low. You are right. The first time. But that's from original to final.
Yeah.
But you realize in October when we passed our millage rate, we were expecting higher than that. And that comparison of the 0.4 is on the first number. But you can see in, I believe, Dave, is it in excess of 1.5 or is it 2%? If the number is significant enough, we are allowed to bring it back to you to see if you want to change it. But none of these met that criteria, even though 1.5% is revenue. That's all this slide was showing you, is that even though we think we know what our number is, it's going to change 2 more times before we really do know what we get. I think what helps us, just for your comfort level, is the state does not require us to budget at 100%, because as you know, people who pay in November and December are going to get a discount, and even January and February there's still a smaller discount. So we budget at 96%. So that helps us soften this blow. Final slide, Kristen. So this was the discussion that we had been asked to give you. And as you recall, way back in January when we began this, we just assumed, not knowing what rates would be, that we would stay with the current millage rate and that we would go up 2%. Since we have now gone up 4.13%, the difference to the pro forma is an additional $148,000 that's not accounted for. So it's just sitting there waiting for your determination of what to do with it. The other question that a lot of people always ask is rollback rate. And of course, you know, rollback rate ensures that you generate the same amount of revenue that you did the previous year, regardless of what value does, plus your change. And your change is new construction, annexations, and any deletions. And we actually had $1 million deletion this year. We're still trying to figure out what building got torn down for the $1 million, but we'll let you know when we find out. Wow. So the rollback rate would generate, what it would do to your pro forma, the current budget that was balanced, was it would delete $63,000 from the budget. So we would have to rethink some things. An alternative rate, this was looking at some of the things that Council Mayor, you can probably explain this even better than I can, but looking at trying to balance the needs of the general fund with the concern for the community, and looking at the paving program, allowing for 1 additional mile of paving. That would get you 104. That doesn't get you the whole 150, but it would at least give it to you on an ongoing basis instead of that one time pulling it out of reserves. So that would be a millage rate of 3.1779. And those are just, these are like throwing darts at the board for you.
Howard?
The reason we are showing you is the third line, is a previous council, not the current one, but a previous council, when they adopted the 0.5 mil increase a couple years ago, said that they would like to, in the future years, if property values go up, slightly reduce the millage. That was a previous council. If you want to continue on that path, as a staff, we're not recommending the rollback rate. We've done that years ago, and look what happened. I mean, it was fine during the recession, but we had to do a 0.5 mil increase. We're not recommending that. If you wanted to slightly reduce the millage rate, but still add more dollars for paving and build it right into your budget, that gives you another mile of residential road paving on an average. It's about $104,000 per mile, and that's built in. That's not to say you can't take more from the reserves that we talked about before,
Right.
but at least that's building it in, and it gives you a slight reduction in the millage rate, not the rollback rate, but it gives you some more roads. And you can, it's clearly explainable, it's a level of service, it's an option. That's why we had it in there. Now, the only reason we talk about it now is that on July 9th, you are going to be asked to adopt a tentative millage. You can go down in September when we have the public hearings, you really can't go up. So we want, you're going to have to adopt a tentative millage.
Okay, so now we need to go back to the list.
Yes.
Yes.
I have a question before we go to the list. Just, Sharon, you asked, you mentioned the rollback rate and the negative 63,000.
Yes.
So when you go back to, find the slide,
Can you go back to the budget slide?
it's slide 25. And you show that it is the list. And you show the available funds. Is that 63,000 would lower this number by 63,000?
Yes, it would. You
So
would
we
just
would-
take 63 from the 831.
Okay, so we would, okay. So we would still be able to, in essence, do
Right.
a
But-
lot of these projects, even if we did go to the rollback rate.
And keep in mind that 63 becomes a permanent thing. You've now lowered your ability going forward to adjust for cost of livings and changes unless you change your millage rate next year.
Well, yeah, but what I'm trying to understand, because I'm hearing, Howard say, if we did the rollback rate, we wouldn't be able to do the paving, but then I see here the negative 63,000 from the 831, you would still be able to do the paving according to this.
Can
So
I
that I'm-
And I'll show you
The
what we're
numbers aren't adding up to me.
Right, let me just take you back to the budget. No, not that far back. Keep going. Right here, okay. When you look at your revenues and your expenditures, okay, if you, and I know you don't see all the categories of expenditures, but if you lower the 2015 number revenue by 63,000, yes, this one time you could choose to use more reserves to balance and continue on with the projects the way you can, but it's not going to help you when you get to 16.
Gotcha.
So we have one more slide to show you before you go into the discussion.
So basically, you would be building in an additional gap going forward.
Gotcha. But it's important that we,
Yeah. So that's why we show you this slide as just a reminder that the 2016 budget is only 12 months away from being discussed, and we put in the assumptions the same as we did for 2015, and your revenues would be 17 million. Your expenditures right now with the current assumptions would be 17,746,000. And just staying at the 355 paving program, you would be at an 18.1 budget with a deficit of $1,064,000. So continuing on. Now, remember, this is not taking advantage of any of the millage rate, or any of the value change, except that first 2%. So if you decide to take a millage rate that accepts some of that full 4% or some variation on, you can improve the future situation. And I apologize. Next week, when you make some semi-decisions today, I can show you some alternatives. So I apologize if it seems a little convoluted right
Howard
now.
wants to, Howard and then Kim.
If we go to the rollback rate, yes, you can do road paving. You can all take it right out of reserves for one time.
For 1 year.
The reason we had that alternative millage rate up there is that, as a staff, we're recommending that we need to beef up our paving as a level of service and do it as a concurrent, ongoing source through that millage. So you don't have to worry about it being one time. We're not yet in the general fund where current revenues meet current expenses. We inch away, but we're not there yet. So if you go to the rollback rate, it's going to take you further apart on the ability to get there. If you go to that alternative millage rate, which is still slightly below the current one, it'll get you closer there.
Kim?
Basically, that's what I was going to say. I think what gets confusing is that when we forget that we're using reserves.
Yes.
We're not making the money that we are. So we always have to know that we're using reserves instead of we don't have enough funds to pay for our expenses. So that's where that comes in. It's basically the same thing Howard said.
Carolyn?
And I would almost recommend that, I understand the whole issue of the potential increase in taxes, but if we use the current millage rate, we would have $148,000 then to put toward our roads. And again, try to start catching up on the backlog that we have on our road program. You know, at one point, I had recommended that we have a separate tax line just for roads, because that is so critical and important in our community to maintain our attractiveness, to, again, just maintain Punta Gorda. So I would definitely go for the 104, but I would also like to recommend we consider staying with the current millage rate.
Well, let's go back and do our reserve decisions. We need to go through this list of available reserves and alternative uses to see what is going to be funded from that, and then we can have the next discussion. Kim?
I just wanted to start off with just reminding us when we're doing this, if we don't get that 1% sales tax, we're going to be in really deep trouble. So we need these things. So when we're talking about rolling back and we're talking about using funds, I mean, this stuff on alternative uses, I mean, some of it we have to have. We have to have that phone system. You know, we have to have that cyber. We have to, we need to have that 5-year plan. I mean, that's critical. I mean, it's not really like, well, we got some money, let's spend it. I mean, we need those things. Plus, we have a whole other list of things we need. So I just want, before we start this, I want, to keep in mind, I'd love to give money back, but, I mean, okay, enough said about that. I could go.
Tom?
No, I was just going to say pretty much the same thing as Ken, not knowing the certainty of the 1% sales tax. We really have to be very reserved, I think, in what we do here.
So does anybody want to take anything off this list? You want to keep it intact? You want to go through it one by one?
I would suggest that we go through it one by one.
Okay. All right, so the first one is the IT needs.
Yes, this would be the transfer to IT to cover the technology.
And the other portions for the other funds are covered?
Yes.
We didn't discuss that, but they are,
That
yes?
we would have to change all of their budgets, but yes, they can do it.
But you've looked at that?
Yes.
Okay. Is everybody okay with
I'm
that?
good with that
Definitely.
one.
I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
good.
technology that's where it's at going forward. I mean, that's what the emphasis is going to be at the Florida League of Cities Conference in August,
And that's like new technology, not catching up with
We
your
can't
old
get, we can't get any further behind.
We need to give Jeff that back button or whatever.
The backbone,
like, yeah.
our backbone's broken.
I came from technology, so I know what happens, and We're there.
And we are behind.
Okay, so we're good with that. The 5-year program, are we
Um,
ready to start that?
We need that.
Fully,
Yes.
fully supportive of that.
Yeah,
as far as-
absolutely. The taxpayers have said this is what they want to see us do.
Well,
So-
when your van gets reported as derelict and you find out that it's a city vehicle,
I know,
that's
it's
pretty.
embarrassing.
Okay, additional transfer for roads,
Yes.
150,000.
Yes.
I'm good with that.
I'm going with staff's recommendation of 104 until we see where we are down the end of this list, and maybe I would be willing to talk about it after we get through this list.
Okay,
But for right now, I'm with 104.
well, the 104 is
50.
additional.
It's additional.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry, yeah,
Okay,
the 150, I'm fine with, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
yep.
yeah.
Decorative
Sorry.
downtown lighting,
But that would probably be the one area that I would say that we could eliminate from this list, and perhaps allow that to go on to the 1% sales tax if and when we get it.
I'm agreeing.
I agree.
I'm in agreement with that.
As much
Yeah.
as I'd love it.
I would love it too.
I would love,
Absolutely.
love, love
As
it,
much as
but-
what I think it would do for the community.
I mean, I'm inclined to leave it on, but
Well, I had a discussion with a few people about it, and they were saying they really felt like it might do a lot for the community. Very positive. I think if we are trying to be good stewards of our taxpayers' dollars, but
And I guess we could look at it as a way of attracting more business downtown. I mean, that again, we're looking, I mean,
Yeah.
you keep balancing things, whether it promotes,
Lights
economic
low.
development and
Yes.
businesses are,
I mean, if we get the 1%, I absolutely. I'm-
so do you want to shift it, I mean, do you want to take it off or leave it on this list?
We can always bring it up again, assuming the 1% becomes available.
Do we want to shift
well,
it to the
isn't this an
one-
annual expense? Didn't
Yes.
it-
Yes,
Yeah.
it is an
Yes.
annual expense.
Annual expense.
Right.
This is an annual expense
So
because
this is not a one-time deal.
No.
No.
I mean, I'm just saying, I would, if the 1% sales tax passes, I would like to do this, for sure. But if it doesn't, that is one of the things that I see that we could wait on.
So do you want to take it off of the general fund list?
can I just get clarification then?
Sure.
You're saying that this would not be a one-time,
No, it would not.
Cost.
This is a hiring a firm, a maintenance firm to come in, put them up.
so really with the
Maintain 'em.
1% tax, that's a temporary Band-Aid
Right.
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 for that. So after the 6 years, there would be none. I mean, and what we would be looking at is 45,000 times 6 years.
This is adding it to the general fund.
And I think too, I mean, we are trying to encourage the
Yeah.
whole festive, more
Yeah, I
festive.
would, okay. Then I would leave
It's
it.
marketing.
Yeah, I would leave it.
We talked about at one point in terms of involving the downtown merchants and maybe the chamber and are reaching into their pockets to some extent to offset this cost. I don't know if any of those conversations ever took place, but
In my mind, they have done part of it because they were the ones that came together to purchase the beautiful Christmas tree that now, look at what that brings. That one night that we have that one event, it's a stimulus for our city. And this would just even enhance that and be year-round. And so many people have said, when you come over that bridge, there needs to be some kind of, people want to light the event center or, a lot of cities you go to, they're lit more so than what we have now. I just think it's something that would really enhance our downtown.
I'm not there. I mean, I'd love to see it, but I don't think our resources can accommodate it right now. We're coming off such bad times, and I'd like to see some good times before we commit to something like that.
I think I would be okay to retain it, again, for the business purposes.
Retain it? For
I
now.
would like to see if we could.
Okay, we're retaining it for now.
Okay.
Cyber fraud protection,
We need it.
Yep.
Yes?
yes.
And this would be an ongoing
But this
annual
would not be
expense.
you'll adjust the number for the general fund, correct?
Yes, I will, thank you.
As long, and if the other funds are affected, you'll have to let us know. And
We'll keep 'em
website
balanced.
redesign,
I mean, I would love to have that, but I don't think it's a critical piece of, I mean, I think we're doing a lot of marketing. I mean, if we have to, do away with something right now, I mean, I know it's on the 1%, it's a one-time charge. I mean, I would love to have it, but if we have to take something, we need everything else. is
Okay,
what
so
I'm
for
saying.
clarification, this would be a one-time charge?
Yes, it
This
is.
is one time.
Yes.
This is on the sales tax list.
So it's, it's $60,000, and if that passes, or even if it doesn't, and the taxes, the property taxes go up, it's not like it's a huge amount of money that we won't recoup somewhere.
I'm back in the decorative lighting justification in that we've talked about this forever.
I know.
It's in our strategic plan for marketing. I mean, we could get started with it sooner than later. I mean, I really would like to see it done. So that's
Oh,
where
me
I'm at
too.
as far as if we say, well, we'll wait, then it's not gonna get done. So
Oh,
I'm
well, I
okay
wouldn't
with
want
leaving
that.
it.
It could get done with, if the 1% sales tax is approved, it can be
If
done.
it, yes, if it
And
is,
I'm
yes.
willing to wait and have that assurance that those funds are available before I wouldn't want to commit to 60 right now.
I think I'm with Tom on
Okay.
I would be with Tom on that. I also, how much did we spend when we redesigned the website?
Oh, we hardly spent anything because we had a citizens committee. We did hire a contractor to do work with us, but it was not
It wasn't
even
this.
close to 60,000.
What's making this one be so expensive?
Well,
Well-
this is a whole system.
Yeah, this is
I'm
a
sorry,
whole,
Howard. This is a standalone system. This is a program that other cities use. It's a whole,
Oh, okay.
it's not just the website, it's not just the looks of it. I mean, it's actually here comes Jeff.
Here comes Backbone.
that. Heard us talking
Obviously, I
about
wasn't doing a
computers.
good job.
Do you want some help?
Sure.
Jeff Payne, IT manager again. So this website redesign, $60,000 is the number that we put in there. And that was to have a professional organization look at that, do a design for us, create a number of different templates, because we do have a lot of different templates on our current website. Then they would also host it, and they'd guarantee the uptime and everything of the site. So they would help us with the migration of our current site to the new site as well. So that's about the going rate for those services these days. And the site we have now, it was under $10,000 that we spent. I think it was in 2007 maybe,
yeah, it was a while ago,
Eight.
yeah.
2008, yeah, somewhere around in there. And I forget whether it was 7,000, 8,000, something like that, or
It was
approximately.
actually 2009, I believe, only because I know that Team Punta Gorda had revised their website in 2008, and it was then when we introduced it, and Howard got upset that we got ours before the city got theirs.
Okay, thank you.
So, I'm hearing that we want to keep it in the 1% category?
Yep.
Okay.
That, wouldn't mind, yeah.
Does that include tablets and smartphones?
Sorry, you
Sorry.
come to the podium, please.
Don McCormick for the record. Does that include tablets and smartphones as well, access on the website redesign?
Yes, the design would be what they call responsive, so that it would be device independent and it would format itself to whichever device you were accessing it from.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so, Carolyn?
A suggestion, since we would be, it seems like I hear everyone saying that we're going to reduce that from this list at $60,000. Could we pump that back into roads? I guess
Sharon?
I'm real concerned that our area is getting to look
Shabby.
very, very
So
shabby.
in other words, take the 60 off of website and add it to,
The
so it'd be
150.
do 210 for roads.
For one-time use.
Instead of
one-time use for
reducing the
roads.
total here of the reserves, we'd still use the total of 728,000, just reapportion it. How does everybody think of?
I would love to see the roads as well, but, if we face a year, next year, that we're not able to work the miracles that Howard and staff has done this year, first place the money's gonna come from is gonna be roads. I mean, that's, so I'm okay to just take a wait and see, you know, until next year, and if it's still going as well as it appears to be, I'd be willing to pump more money into roads at that point.
So you
Just-
want to eliminate the 60,000?
Yes,
And then just leave that in reserve.
yes.
I would be all right with that. And I wouldn't be opposed to having at least a discussion. If we really feel that transportation is a critical going forward thing, that, I know we liked, it's a nice story to be able to say our ad valorem includes everything, but transparency to the ratepayers, taxpayers is really important. And so it may be that in the future, we do need to have a separate line item that's an assessment. That means we could lower the ad valorem rate. I wouldn't want to have it if we didn't, but I'm just, at least for transparency purposes.
Well, in the past, first of all, we are the most transparent government agency in this area. I deal with some other ones that are not. So I think we're very transparent. I don't have any hesitation to say that at all. And I think then we go back to the discussion about annexation, which are another thing in our strategic plan. Do we want to help it or hurt it?
Yeah.
And so it all comes down to the calculations, and when you've got that millage rate, they know that that's the deal, and so far,
That's
that's
true.
an advantage for us.
That's a good point.
And it's a voluntary process. So if we start changing that, it may not be as advantageous for businesses or, you know, residential communities to come into the city if we start changing our formula. So I mean, we've had the conversation probably 3 times that I've been on council, and it's always come back to that, and I'm still okay with that. Kim?
Now, for what we know is going to happen, the 1% sales tax is going to pass. Yeah. So what happens then? Because we have this on here, I mean, we need to do the IT stuff right now. I mean, like, I hope they're ordering the equipment right now.
I mean, I
But-
think we should wait until,
Right, but I mean, what's the process then? If we,
Well, if the,
then this stuff would fall off this list.
no, not all of it. If the sales tax passes, we still need the fleet and equipment replacement fund.
Sure.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. We are going to do, so far, the extra $150,000 for roads. That's
Right.
not on the sales tax.
Right.
Cyber fraud protection, that's not on the
That's not
sales
on
tax. Downtown decorative lighting, that's
Isn't
not
it?
on the sales
Okay.
tax. So there you go.
So we're really only talking about
IT.
an extra
The
200.
146 and the 60.
And the
So really,
60.
you're only talking
Well,
206.
website didn't make the list.
Right.
no, of the
iPod.
1 cent.
Oh, the
1%.
1%,
Yes.
yeah.
Right. If we
It's
lost
on
the
there.
1 cent
Yeah,
and they
on the sales
wanted to
tax.
still do the,
Didn't make
Project.
the surplus.
So these things are gonna be, if we
Right.
decide, they are budgeted.
Right.
So,
Okay.
in essence, they would come, whatever's duplicated on the 1%, if it does pass, would be
Right.
not,
Well, then
on
we
there.
could do more roads, I was
You can't do roads with the sales tax.
No, you
Right,
can't.
right.
So-
Well, that's what I meant. We would do this with the sales tax, and then we would do the roads with that.
Can,
like, I think the basic question that we're asking right now, do you wanna fund these?
Yes.
Do we wanna fund these?
Yep.
When we get to that point, if it passes, then we, you know, we can play the funding game, but.
when the 1% sales tax passes, we will be bringing a supplemental appropriation to you. And we can have a meeting prior to that to decide how you're going to adjust what you want to spend from 15 to what you've already budgeted from another source to spend for 15.
Okay.
So we can have that conversation before we do that supplemental appropriation.
Yes.
Absolutely.
so based on today's discussion, we are going to be including in the proposed budget $146,000 for IT, $312,000 for starting a equipment and fleet replacement fund, another $150,000 for roads, $45,000 for downtown decorative lighting, we're going to include that in the budget, $15,100 for cyber fraud protection, we're going to include that in the budget. That will be, all of that will be in the proposed 15 budget. Okay?
Yes.
Good. Okay, now, millage rate. Because we need to prepare a resolution today or next week. We can either leave the resolution blank, and you can think about it, or we can put a number in.
I mean, this is our not to exceed number.
That's correct.
Right.
So you can leave it blank, and we'll have the agenda item blank. You can decide on it next Wednesday, or do you want us to fill in a number and advertise it at that rate for next Wednesday?
I'm okay with the bottom number, just so it's less than the current. It's still helping us meet our revenue needs with some extra, that if we decide that we want to put that toward roads, then
Well, it's earmarked for roads.
right, okay, so it's earmarked for roads, and that does ensure us, if we decide to do that, that moving forward, we're not falling behind in our road program, which is,
We are behind.
we are behind.
know we
That
are, we are.
truly are behind,
Yeah.
and it's showing. We
Yeah.
can't cover up the potholes anymore. So, I'm okay with the bottom number at this point, going on the resolution. Tom?
Sure. I would like to say, Howard, you, your department heads, and your staff have just demonstrated once again that you are really terrific stewards of the city's resources. I think you guys did a wonderful job. I'm also supportive of your recommendation to go with the bottom number, the 3.1779.
I would support that. We have to show that we are willing to lower the millage rate, and yet we're not doing it in an irresponsible manner to jeopardize our any kind of projects that we need to really go forward with.
I agree.
Carolyn, you?
We cannot go above that once that goes through as a resolution. So, I would like to have more funds in there for roads, but, I could be in agreement with that.
So what I'm hearing is we will advertise the resolution as part of the agenda at 3.1779, and then you'll have a public hearing on it next Wednesday.
Yes.
And
Just a
the
tentative rate.
the clarification for Councilman Freeland is that what we advertise this weekend can be changed on Wednesday. But once you adopt the resolution on Wednesday, that will be what the county appraiser puts out in the trim notice, and we can't go above that.
So in other words, next Wednesday, we'll have the same discussion.
We will.
Yes, you
We'll have the same
can.
discussion.
Yes, you can.
Question.
Yes, Nancy?
The rate 3.1779 includes 1 mile of additional paving beyond the 150,000.
No.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
that's, yes, if that's what you choose to do. What it's
Okay.
intended to mean here is
You could-
1 additional mile above the 600, but if you choose to also use reserves, which you
They did.
did, of another 150, then yes, it would be 600 plus the 150 plus the 104.
So for
One
next,
time only, one time
and for
only.
2016, if we decided to go with this, the new paving budget would be 704.
Yes.
And then we could still do what we did this year, look at reserves, and if we wanted that to go toward roads, then that would be the one for that 1 year. So this next year, we're getting 150,000 out of reserves. And if we go with this millage rate, we are bumping up the paving budget to 704. Is that,
That's correct.
yes.
That's correct.
Could we also show what that millage rate would be if we did not use the 104? Just to show what it would,
It'd be
It'd
the
current
rollback rate.
It'd be the rollback.
It would be the rollback.
would be the rollback rate?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
The
okay.
rollback rate.
Never mind.
So just a
I-
clarification.
I'm sorry, go ahead, yes.
As we complete these, do these roads, update the roads, when we incorporate the complete streets and the ADA requirements, assuming the 1% sales tax passes, we can take revenue from that and incorporate it into the resurfacing, at least a portion of it. Is that my understanding correct?
I thought the ADA improvements we could, but I don't know about the resurfacing.
ADA
And
You
say
can
re-
use sales tax, but not the resurfacing.
To do the upgrades.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying resurfacing, but the corners when we make, well, it's all ADA, I guess.
Yeah, that's ADA, and that you can use sales tax.
And complete streets, portions of that,
Yes.
if we're,
Portions of that,
yes.
yes.
Portions of it, yes.
So that gets us a little extra mileage, not a lot, but it gets us something.
But really, the complete streets is not in this, it's only in the sales tax
That's right.
program. Because we're talking about like Cooper Street and different areas that we're not paving, but we're improving the pedestrian corridor of the street. So,
Again, when we stick in the 3.1779, that's just a number to place in the agenda item.
and I feel like it's totally justified from the discussion that we had today.
Well, the one question that goes through my mind is, just thought of is, so we say there's a 4.13% increase in value, property value. How much of that are we then counting on using, to get, if we use 3.1779, what part of that?
The original 228 that was in the pro forma plus the 104. Is that what you mean? So that's the additional revenue that you are relying on to balance 15, unless I don't understand your question.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is if we left the millage rate at 3.1969, then that means our revenue should theoretically be 4.1%.
Yes.
3% greater.
Yes, but remember, your current pro forma is using 228,000 of that already. Your current pro forma, where you weren't in balance and you needed reserves, you've already used that, so to speak. Unless you don't want to, then we have to eliminate some of those projects we just looked at.
Not all the variables stayed equal. Variables
It's the
changed.
reserves that screw us up.
Am I answering your question? So
Yeah, I guess.
I-
I have
if
to think
the,
about this.
the whole 4.13, what is that number? It's the 228 that's already in the pro forma plus the 148. So it's an addition, if I can do that math, $370,000 that you are expecting to get in the budget, and you're using it to do two things. One, 228 of it to help balance the operating budget, and another 148 to do, well, right now you've lowered it to 31779, so it's another 104 to put towards paving. So 228 to help balance the operating budget, and 104 to help go towards paving.
To put it in even more perspective for next Wednesday, and we can show you the impact on a homeowner
Yes, I would like to see that.
based on that millage rate, and taxes will go up.
I would like to
And
see
we
that.
can show you that.
I want to see that because I think that's going to be a concern. So-
Well, but we can also show you, taxes will go up, and here's what you're getting for it.
That's okay. But I think I'd like to see that.
Sharon, the other thing that I think was asked, that when you showed that total from the 1%, and you highlighted the needs,
Yes.
can you calculate a millage rate for that as well? Which
And I'm
was,
sorry, yes, you did ask for that, and I did not do it, but yes, we can email that out to you
and
all
maybe
today.
if you can take out what we've just, the 312 piece of it, so it's not duplicated, to
And
try to make it,
yes, we will separate the two out, and then,
just come up with a millage rate for,
and would the millage rate be, it would have to be spread out over a period of time, because, I mean.
right, what the number that you got, the 728, go back to that slide for a second.
Sure.
The long list of,
For now, would you like me to?
okay, so
the
783,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
so the 783 minus what's duplicated in the 5-year capital outlay, how much of a millage rate would that be?
Okay.
If we were to add that, if we were,
Right now, we know that, for example, just, we're rounding, basically $7.6 million we're generating with a little over 3 mills. Okay, so basically a mill will generate, so it's not quite a half a mil, just real quick,
Okay.
but it's going to be something a little less than a half a mil will get you the real number.
Okay,
That's what you're looking for, right?
yes,
Okay. Okay.
to generate that, to fund that list there.
Yes.
What would it look like if we were to add that into our
Right.
millage rate?
Right, which is an interesting way
point.
to explain to the public, if you vote for the 1 cent sales tax, we can do this. If you don't, and we still need to do this,
That's,
this is the millage rate we would be looking at needing.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, all
That's
right,
good
I'm with you.
information going
And I
forward.
apologize for not having that
That's
for
okay.
today. And if you'll bear with me, I want to flip back to our very last slide again, because I just don't want to neglect pointing out to you the comparison of 15 to 16. And I know for some of you that have been on the council for several years, we always find a way to resolve the shortfall, but it's never easy and sometimes very painful. So generally, at this point in time, we show you the shortfall for the next year, and we say, we know we have some reserves already to shore up that shortfall, which is, if you'll remember, that's what we did a year ago to help balance 15. We said, we know we've got $590,000 we can tuck aside and help 15. And now, luckily, we only need 374,000 of it. But right now, in 16, I can't offer you much at all. So just kind of keep that in mind, that yes, maybe by the end of the year, if the departments don't spend their entire budgets, and if revenues come in a little bit better, I'll have some money to offer you, but that's a significant shortfall for 16.
So what is that pro forma 2016? What millage rate was that based on?
That's based on the current, in the 2%. So
Current
if,
millage
if
rate.
we adjusted that by, but you see, if we adjust it by the 104, but I add that to the paving, it's not going to help.
Yes,
It doesn't help that because it's all going to paving.
yes.
But if you choose, anyway,
In other
If you
words,
choose
I
what?
don't mean to, if you choose to do your paving from an increased millage, but don't use your reserves towards paving, then you have some reserves to help put towards 16. And if we're fortunate and the 1% sales tax passes, and some of the things we've identified, that 146, say, to help support IT, can be used from 1% sales tax, that's another 146 that can help balance 16. So we will remember all those things and talk about them with you in the fall when we get to the 1% sales tax.
Well, then, when you see this, and then you think about lowering the millage rate, and now we're gonna have, we could possibly have, I don't wanna have to raise it.
Right, I understand that.
So, I mean, this is a pretty significant deficit.
It always is when we start the process, because we assume certain revenues, we assume certain expenses. Taxable value, what are you assuming?
The taxable value, the same as what we have right now, the 2%.
2% in 2016.
Okay.
Well, the trend
So-
seems to be getting a little better.
Okay.
So you'll have to look
Yeah.
at that next year and consider keeping that to help balance your budget.
So
And, and it does assume that expenditures would go up, operating would go up 3%. This year, for about the third or fourth year in a row, we've asked the departments to hold the line. At some point, fuel is, in fact, we had to go ahead and, fire department couldn't hold the line on fuel, Parks and Grounds couldn't hold the line on fuel or watering. So we're starting to see where we just can't get the departments to hold the line anymore, and that 3% is not an unreasonable, estimate of what CPI and costs might do. So that's why Howard's saying it's conservative. I hope it's conservative. I would not want to come to you and say it's worse than that. I hope that that's the most conservative that I need to show you.
So even if we adopt the 3.1779 and we're earmarking it for paving, it's not going to help our general fund.
Correct.
Correct. Unless you don't earmark it for paving,
Right.
and we just put it in paving for the first year.
And you can't do that. It is not an obligation for you to mark it beyond 1 year. Because
I mean,
each
it
year's
is.
millage rate is established in its own set of public hearings.
That's right.
Only when you do debt. If you do debt for a millage rate, then you've committed yourself until that debt is paid off.
Okay, do you have all the direction that you need?
For next Wednesday, we do.
Yes? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for
Sharon
your
and
time
Kristen,
today.
Thank you.
Great job.
Terrific.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're back down to recommendations from city officers. Howard?
No?
None?
No.
What? City attorney?
Have a safe 4th. See you next week.
Thank you. City clerk?
Promise I won't take as long as the budget. Okay, under boards and committees. Under vacancies, we have one unexpired term as an alternate on the Historic Preservation Advisory Board. That's a continuing vacancy. Another continuing vacancy is on the Code Enforcement Board for an alternate for an unexpired term. We now have an unexpired term for an alternate on the Planning Commission. And under nominations, we do have an applicant for the Building Board alternate term.
I'd like to make the nomination.
Could we go ahead and appoint him as well?
Make
Since
the
we only have the one
nomination and
applicant.
appoint.
So we'll need a motion.
Second.
Thank you. And that's all I have. Oh, actually, do you want to vote on the motion? I'm sorry, I'm rushing you along.
Okay, oh, yeah, because it is an appointment.
Yeah,
We
I
have a
made a mo-
motion and a second to nominate and appoint Mr.
Mr. Quack.
Mr. Quack
Sorry.
to the building board. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. This is coming under Tom?
Yep.
Okay, under policy and legislation, I have none. So we will go with council member comments. Do you mind if I start with Tom since he has an item? Okay.
Thank you. Some time ago, I met with the Punta Gorda Chamber of Commerce, their Government Affairs Committee, and the reason for the meeting was they had some issues they had a issue from one of their businesses, and that they felt they weren't treated properly in pursuing whatever they were pursuing in the way of inspections from the city or whatever it might be. So I suggested that they do a survey amongst their members to find out if there are any particular issues that surface to the top. That really never happened, but in talking to Howard about it, we both kind of agreed it would be a good idea to have that survey available. And spoke to Karen. Karen went on the web and she took something that some of the other cities, I believe, use. Is that correct for this?
I ended up not using that. Their surveys were geared to a citywide type of survey.
Okay.
So I understood that we were really focusing on the businesses.
Okay, yeah.
So-
So this is something that when a business applies for their LBT, they can be given a survey, this survey, if we agree to it, and they can report back, and the city and we can know, and department heads will know how they felt about how they were treated. I mean, I just thought it would be a measuring tool.
I like it. Yeah. I think it's great. Anytime we can get feedback.
We were going
help
to
us.
possibly make one change on the form. I forgot who I talked to.
Me.
Oh,
So I think two changes, really. I would like it better if it was more consistent with the different divisions where it could say like building, clerk's office, and then just fire.
Right. Because right now it aims at an individual.
Because right now, the city
Okay.
clerk is a
Right.
person, the fire marshal is a person.
Right, okay.
So if we
The
could put
office.
clerk's
Right.
office.
Sure.
yeah.
Fire department.
And the only thing that, some people come into business in Punta Gorda and they feel like our regulations are too stringent and they don't like that their sign can't include everything that they want or, so I think there is a chance that we could get some of those responses here, which would not necessarily reflect the staff. It's just the person's not happy with the regulations. So maybe, they could comment if that
But
would,
that's okay, we need to
Yeah.
give them that opportunity to have a voice. And as I've explained to people, when they comment about some of our regulations, it's like, well, that's why we look the way we do. And if we wanted to look like other areas in other, in Charlotte County, we could lower our standards but that's not what we choose to do here, so.
Just for the benefit of everybody here and watching
do you want to put it up?
can you put it up so everybody has an opportunity just to see what it's like? You have it?
So are we going to put fire or fire department?
Fire.
Just fire? Okay.
We have building, fire, zoning, and clerk's office.
Clerk's office.
Clerk's office.
Yes.
So we'll take Randy's name, Karen's name, and Jen's name.
Put
Well,
Terry on.
Building is a division. And so with, Karen, we don't need department by fire. Fire is like a, okay.
So those are the areas: courtesy and friendliness, responsiveness, ease of access to information, and an overall experience with the process.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
I
I
like
think
it.
it's great.
I like it.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Would we have any goals to go along with this, that we want to have X%?
Well, the way another department works theirs is every week. They have somebody call people who receive service from that particular department. And then if there is any critical comments, whatever, they go back to that individual or that area and they get a response. So they don't really have a percentage like we want to have. Well, we'd all like to have 100% satisfaction with everything we do,
Right.
but I don't know if we can ever get that. But we would, for instance, if there are an individual who has critical comments about building, we would go back to the building division and ask for a particular response in that particular instance. And some of it may be valid, some of it, there are questions that maybe the individual didn't quite know some of the circumstances, and we did the best we could. I mean, all comments are comments, and we need to deal with them. That's how we would handle it. As far as a percentage, I don't know. We're treading new ground here.
Yeah, treading new ground.
Probably after you have experience also with the survey, you can obviously modify it in the future. The one thing I thought, not only business name, but who the contact person is that's actually responding, so that you can follow up with that individual for, specific information.
Yeah, we started out with a survey that asked a lot more questions, and as more iterations of it came out, we thought if it was something that looked like it would be very easy to complete, then we would be more likely to get a response. This is something that will be given to them after they've been through the process. They get their business tax receipt. We'll give them the survey with that, and if they want to complete it, they will. It's, it's not mandatory. But we even had a question on there, may we contact you regarding the survey, and asked for the contact name and phone number. So we can put some of those things back in if you would like, or.
I think at least to have the contact name and phone number
And
so
phone
that you
number.
can get
Yeah.
feedback. I mean,
Yes,
'cause
yes.
might be something specific and it may be so off the wall that you can,
And it's not always the owner of the business
Right.
that we deal with. It's
Could be an agent.
often an office manager or,
I think
How
it's,
are you going to
restaurant
get these
manager.
back?
I'm
How are
sorry.
you going to get these back?
We are providing a self-addressed stamped envelope.
City attorney has a comment.
Yeah, I was gonna say you might get more responses and more accurate responses if you delete the business name line altogether. Or at least put in optional.
If we don't put the business name, then the follow-up would be difficult.
No, I understand that, and that's my point, is that, because these are public records, and if I was a business that was gonna be doing a lot of complaining about the people that I dealt with, I might be reluctant to actually put the accurate information, or even submit it to begin with, so.
think if it was stated on there, though, that, to help us be more responsive and improve, we would appreciate being able to,
If the judges set a form like this, and I was honest and put my name there, I wouldn't submit that form back, I assure you.
You could just put name and business optional. There
Put
you
it
go.
optional.
That way, if they want, we still want the information.
And if they have
The information
have,
is more important.
and if they have a specific complaint, we're probably gonna be able to figure out who it was.
Could we number them? Keep track of them.
how about
on there, right?
fingerprints?
Do we need to state on there it's a public record, or is that just assumed since it's coming back to a city government?
You put that on and you're definitely not going to get it to you.
But it is.
I mean, it is a public record, and some people don't really understand that. That's why I was thinking that, at the very least, make it optional.
Optional.
We could do that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not going to use this survey to beat up on people. We're using this survey to help us.
Right.
Yes.
I mean,
Right.
Since there isn't the legal department on there,
You're fine. You're fine. Okay, Carolyn, did you have any comments?
I just was wanting to confirm the July meeting of Swift Mud. Who is going to be in town and who plans to go? Because I know I'm not going to be in
fairly
town.
sure I'm going.
I can go
I'll
if
go.
it's helpful. I don't want to go if it's unnecessary.
I got a call from Mark, remember Mark Hammond? Everybody knows
Yes.
Mark Hammond. He's going to call me again this week to see what our attendance requirements may be, if any. Because he's working on putting our Phase 1 well field testing and permitting smack dab in the budget.
Well, I-
That's good.
And I think once we get the paperwork and the calculation, we'll have a comfort level decision at that time, if it's something we feel comfortable with or something we feel like we still need to speak up about.
What about the distribution of the funding? from
Jerry's
Swift?
working on that. Our lobbyist is working on that. Yeah, our lobbyist is working on that. And I asked Mark Hammond from Swift, I said, do you want to see us again? And
But then we feel like if we're not there,
I-
what might happen or what could they say? So, I mean, I'm more than likely going. I don't know that I'm gonna do the whole blue card process, so
Count me in.
What date is it?
July 21st.
when is it?
It's July 21st on
I will be out of state.
a Monday, I believe it is.
Yes, it
Our
is.
It's in
utility- our u-
Tampa.
I think our utilities director will be able to be there. So
And it's in Tampa.
we'll have representation. Hopefully, we won't have to say anything this
Right.
time because frankly, I don't know if they really want to hear from us anymore. I'm
I
just-
understand what you're saying, but I think just to show up.
Yeah, it would be good.
Yeah, I'm just
we
not
have to.
available, but I'm glad that you all are.
Yes, I am too. And I'm glad that I'm not, no.
You could stream it in and watch.
No, I am not.
You're a
streaming.
computer.
I'd like to see them all again.
Okay.
I guess just one other thing with regards to our comments that we have received. Representative Ben Albritton, we've been contacting them. Our lobbyist has contacted Mr. Albritton. But I did send thank you letters to all, but he was the one that responded and said, "It is so nice to get a thank you note." He says so many times, no one responds and no one lets you know that they appreciated what you did. So I thought that was nice to know. And I know I passed it along to you, but I thought, a lot of times our representatives don't get the feedback that they might want as a kind of a little bit of a pat on the back for helping to get something done.
But they have been so responsive.
They have.
I mean, I just feel totally satisfied with all of them, really. We've asked them to write letters or, do things for us. They are on top of it. They really are. So
They
that's,
really were.
when I go
Very
to the
good.
League of Cities, I don't hear that from the other people around the table. So it's nice to know that we have a really neat situation here.
Yep.
absolutely.
And you've done a great job, Carolyn.
Yes.
Thank you
Thank
for
Well,
sending
it's-
those
no,
letters,
it's
too.
all been all of us. I mean, when we all showed up again, and you know, Rachel was up there, you know, as our team leader, and you watch these people not being responsive, it's hurtful.
Yeah.
But hopefully, I'm pleased to hear that we're moving forward with, in the budget. That's good, that's the next
That
step.
would be great.
That is
That
the
would
first
be
step
really good.
in the process, so it's great.
We're on first base.
Yeah. Well, I thought about all the money that they're distributing, and it's our tax dollars. And it's like, the tone of their conversation is nothing compared to our conversation. So it's,
I did have one more thing, if I could. I noticed a pickup truck traveling through my neighborhood the day before we had the pickup for the recycling. And this pickup was picking up all kinds of scrap, any kind of scrap metal that was in the area. They would pick it up, and put it on their truck. And I had made previous arrangements with the city to pick up a refrigerator I was throwing out. And this guy wanted to pick up my refrigerator, and I said, I've already allocated that refrigerator, don't touch that refrigerator. So, long story short, I chased him away, but he came back, and I said, he told me there's another pickup behind me that's gonna take that refrigerator. I said, no, he's not. And I did have a conversation with the police department, and they have advised me that that's not legal. Once the material is put curbside, it's the property of the city and its agents to pick it up. And it might be something that we want to have a blurb in a weekly report reminding people about. Because, you know, one day it's your scrap refrigerator, next day it's your ornament on the lawn if it's metal, and especially if it's copper.
They've tried to take my mailbox before that's metal.
I know that happens though, in communities all over the country. I mean, when I went we would take things to recycling when we lived in Colorado and down into Denver, and the guy who owned the recycling company was telling me his sons, and he was proudly telling me how much money they made every day going around and picking up.
Well, I think our
things,
residents
so-
should know that they should call. If they feel offended by it, they
Yeah.
shouldn't just allow it.
Well, I don't recall if our